as well. But it's always good to just have some way to kind of go back and track. So that's
and
that's all.
having that recording as we build a library of that, it doesn't matter if 5 people show up or 50 people show up, because we have a great dialogue. The fewer the people, the more in depth everybody can get, and then we capture that so we can then publish it.
Well, if you remember, last week Rachel had to dial in and dial out because she was taking care of one of her neighbors, and
Right.
so she missed out on the conversation. And she contacted me during the week. She said, "Hey, can you send me the link so I can catch up on things and be ready?" And so I sent it to her the other day. So she's well versed on where we are. So you're absolutely right. And Rich, I was mentioning that to folks that I posted this on Facebook. I'm trying to see how we could widen the net, and I put it on Facebook events, as well as shared it with other groups that are out there. So we may end up with some more people here than we have seen before. So
Yeah.
just a heads up there. We got Larry Garcia here. Hey, Larry, how are you?
Larry's on mute.
Okay. He just said hello. It looks like, okay, you're on mute there, Larry. It looks like Vernon's there. Hey, Vernon, how you doing, Mr. Taylor?
All right.
Okay, Larry said he can't speak. No worries. Hey, you can always, hey, just listen in. That's as good as talking as well. Vernon, how are you?
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Never better, never better. Always good to hear your voice.
Thank you, sir. Likewise.
So, Rich, you want to go ahead and kick
Sure.
us off there?
Let's go ahead and so that Vernon and everyone can see the check-in charts that we use and so forth. Let me know when you can see my screen. You got it?
Yes, it's up.
All right. Yeah. So Vernon, we usually when we do a workshop, because we always use it when we check in the meeting. So when we do like a stakeholder workshop, we usually put up something like this to show them how we connect with veterans in ongoing training and workshops and so forth, where we ask them, how are you doing from a 1 to 10? It's kind of like a wellness self-rating, where 1, I really couldn't be doing any worse, to 10, hey, I couldn't be doing any better today. And it's really looking at your whole life in balance. We know there's ups and downs, but how do you feel you're managing it overall? And I'm checking in today at a 9, had a good day, good week. Sun's shining today. That always helps. And that's what I'm doing. Let's go over to Charlie.
Yeah, I claim a 10 despite reality, and everything is good.
All right. Pete, good morning.
Good morning. I'm going to say frequency 528, which is on the esophageal frequencies, the love frequency, which also equals 10.
Excellent. Let's go to Vernon.
I would say on a 5.
Okay.
With all this going on, however, like someone said, I want to say a 10, because the mental state of moving forward is strong in my mind.
That's good. 5 is happening around you, but you choose to be a 10. Got it.
That is correct.
All right. Larry, are you able to speak, or you want to write in, or just?
He's written it in the text.
Okay. What does he say?
He said 8 to 8 and 8.5.
All right. Very good. And then Maurice.
Hey, you caught me fiddling around with some other things there. So let's see. David's an 8. Excuse me. Did we get your number, David?
Oh,
Yeah.
No,
He's
that was,
Go ahead, Dave.
I'll check in at a 10 today. I've been a bit challenged this past week. I been prepping my drone class for the inspection of infrastructure, doing an infrastructure inspection team coming to town on Wednesday. But outside of that, I was at Fleet Week this week for the innovation part of STEM. Boy, I tell you, that was a bit challenging. They busted over 4,000 students during that 3-day period of time, and they took advantage of my drone soccer arena. But I'm taking it a 10.
Awesome.
Very
And Rachel
good.
just joined us.
Oh, Rachel. Good morning.
Rachel, are you having techie problems there, or that little mute button?
I'm sorry, were you guys, I was like, no one's talking. Can
That's
you hear
because we were listening to you.
Yeah.
me? I was like, no one's talking. I muted and then I said, oh, let me mute. Sorry, I was running a little behind this
Yeah.
morning. We're checking in, I take it.
Mm-hmm.
So sun is out, it's a brisk morning, got my walk in. I say besides my allergies, I'm gonna give it a 9 today. My allergies are playing not so nice.
All right. And Maurice.
Okay. Rich, can I just share my screen for a second? I just want to
Absolutely.
share something with everybody, and it looks like Mr. Fasano's joining. So let's let John jump in here and check in as well. Richard, you said you were like a 9. And
Yeah.
Okay, Dave's coming. We got a few more people coming in. Okay. And so hey John, good morning, Dave. We're doing a check-in. So John, you want to go ahead and check in? He's working on it. There he is. You still working on it? Okay. So it looks like John is still working on it there. And we got Dan. Hey Dan, you want to go ahead and check in?
Sure thing. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Great. Well, good to see you folks. Sorry, I've been missing out over here. Been really busy over here and as well as work. Honeydews on renovation. Isn't that fun? But on the faith side, it's just and really I just been also excited about everything to do with vets. I've been seeing more and more. It seems like God's placing a lot of different situations in my life. Meeting different vets just out while I'm doing my general errands and things like that. So it's really great to meet them and just say some kind words to them for their service. But on just kind of the reflection front from a faith standpoint, faith is growing. Really, the more faith you have, the more peace, calm, love, joy, and getting things done on focused efforts, I think is happening. And then one of the things that I've noticed is that when you got to be careful, and I kind of say this sarcastically, is that when you got to be careful what you actually ask for from God. You know, we all have kind of our, and I hate to say wish list, it really isn't wish list. It's really just what we like to see happen in our life. And of course, it's on God's terms and timing. But it seems like the more I ask for specific things or certain events to happen or accomplishments to occur, God provides. I've been consistent on that. And so I just say, just be careful what you ask for in a good way and keep the faith. I think really it's just being patient with God. God will provide. And it's been really just a calming agent as well as also a motivator. I've actually had, the thing is actually, in a way, this is my first cup of coffee like in about 2.5, 3 weeks, believe it or not. It's just, I know it's tradition over here. I see cups of coffee all the time. But I just felt that I didn't really need it because all of a sudden I was kind of spiritually charged throughout my day. And I've been getting up like extremely early. It's just like sometimes I don't even need to set the alarm. So it's like I'm up an hour or two beforehand. I'm getting by on, I hate to say it, sometimes 4 to 6 hours of sleep, but being highly motivated throughout the day without caffeine, believe it or not. So just keep the path forward, keep your faith in God, and always ask for what you like to receive down the road. And it's not just really selfish type thing, but really mutual.
That's right. Good check-in, because you asked for it, then you might be responsible for it. So
Yeah.
Hey,
Exactly.
Dan. And what was your number, Dan?
Oh, no. Oh, I didn't say a number. Well, it's through the roof. So I'm going to go and say 11.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yogi,
Good morning, everybody.
good morning.
Hey.
I would like to check in at a 9. I am extremely happy with everything. I've taken a little bit of time to myself to kind of decompress from the whole having family here, the whole thing, absorbing everything. And it just really feels amazing to legitimately be finished because I was on a holding pattern for about 2 years. So that was very challenging. And then now it just feels glorious to move on to bigger and better things. So
Awesome. Hey, John, are you able to check in?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
There you go. Yes.
Okay. I'm over a 10, and I think the reason is that a 66-year-old veteran that I started working with about a year and a half ago, all I basically did was bring him to a very good accredited VSO that we have in Los Angeles, and he filed a claim for PTSD for basically being attacked by somebody else when he was in the Marines. Oh my God, it was back in 1977. And even though the claim was filed last November, I visit this VSO every week. And this was one of those cases where if it was publicized, the VA would just get another horrible black eye because nothing was done with his claim, literally, for, I would say, 10 months. I mean, he didn't even get called for a C&P exam. And our VSO was on the phone with the VA as his official representative, raising his voice, let's put it mildly. Why isn't this claim being worked on? Why isn't this claim being worked on? He wrote to his supervisor. I mean, it was exasperating. And I believe it was in September, he received a letter saying, we'd like to call you in for a C&P exam. So this was 10 months after he filed his claim. He was finally called in for a compensation and pension exam. Fortunately for him, he was examined by a VA psychologist who has 26 years of experience, who I've had the good fortune of meeting in the past. She not only diagnosed him with PTSD, but she, as she usually does, went the extra mile and spent time with him going through all of his VA records. And it turns out he had been examined for PTSD 5 years ago. And she basically found that the examinations were very faulty. So she wrote up her DBQ, her disability questionnaire, and in it she stated not only should he be paid for post-traumatic stress disorder, but she felt that he should be paid retroactively. And he called me on Tuesday and said he got a decision letter stating that he was going to be paid as 100% service connected for post-traumatic stress disorder, and that it would be retroactive for 2 years. And
nice.
Multiply $3,500 a month times 24. That's the check this guy's going to get. And I would, I am just, when he called me, it was very hard for me to talk because he's 66 years old. He wasn't getting anything. And I guess it sort of is a comment on how few doctors that we have within the VA system that are qualified to evaluate post-traumatic stress disorder and also the symptoms of TBI. It's a well-known fact that as far as mental health goes, especially out here on the West Coast, the proficiency of a lot of our doctors leaves a lot to be desired. So fortunately, this particular veteran happened to get this one doctor that is, she's, like I say, 26 years, dedicated, honest, and a lot of experience. And she fights for veterans when she sees injustice. And I'm just so happy for him. So I'm much higher than a 10. Let's put it that way.
Wow, that's amazing. And you know, John, I think one of the things that brings to mind is that if our veterans have somebody like you or a sponsor helping them, they could get to solutions a whole lot faster than having to wait multiple months or years to get there. And so I'm gonna go ahead and check in, and I'm gonna share my screen just for a moment because some of the work that we were doing during the week, we were looking at ways to quantify a lot of what we're talking about here. So I want to share this with you as soon as it pops up on the screen. You've heard me speak a lot about the Henry Jackson Foundation and the Veterans Metrics Initiative study that they did, which was an insightful research project to identify how we feel about whatever's happening in our life, good, bad, or indifferent, at varying stages of our transition, reintegration. And what I did was used AI to blend our check-in, our life balance wheel, with the findings of the Henry Jackson Foundation TVMI study that really associated how we feel, kind of coming back to the number and why your number is so important. How we feel can be quantified, and there's a metric, there's a way to really identify, where you are, what's your current state of mind. And so if we look at everybody that's checking in at 9s and 10s, we can see that again, you're in, and I had this conversation on Thursday with a transitioning service member. He's an Army veteran, he's stationed in Wisconsin, and I did a 3-hour session with him, and I asked him what his score was, and then I started talking with him about you got to get optimized. In fact, he came in and said, "Well, my score is 6," and I didn't show him this first. I just let him check in to tell me what his score was, and then after I showed him the scale and we began talking about it, he switched almost instantly. Said, "I'm really a 10. I feel these things. I got it." And he does. He's got ideas. He's got plans. I mean, he's got a lot going on. But sometimes, and here's the point, sometimes we can trick ourselves into a lesser thought than a higher thought in terms of where you really could be. So if you live up to it, if you think you're a 10, you're a 10. And then automatically you begin to feel that way, and it really works. And everything that we do definitely does work. And so I wanted to share this with you guys, and I'll send a copy of it so you can spend some time looking at each one of the levels, the areas, what's going on, the whole 9 yards. But there is a way to quantify how we're feeling through this study that the Henry Jackson Foundation has done. And now we're putting things into different solutions. Now, the challenge for us is, how do we get this down to I'm gonna use the Marines. How do we get this down to the grunt level? Somehow we got to get to them so that they're feeling good. And so how do we bring them from where they are to where we want them to be? And I'm going to toss the ball back over to Rich, because early this morning we were on a call and we were talking about something similar. Then Rich introduced an article that Marines are more likely to commit suicide than anybody else. And I thought that was really, really profound there. And again, I'm going to research, and I want to get into the why. For us, it's just not enough to say this is what's happening. It's more important for us to get to the why, and then what can we do to work on that. So, Rich, I'm going to toss the ball back over to you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Let me share.
And I'm gonna stop sharing.
Okay. I'm going to reshare.
And this again could be very relevant as we get back into this subject of holidays and coping with things of that nature. Rich?
Right. Are you back to my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we started talking last week about triggers, emotional triggers around the holidays, because every year we like to lean into this and with a different perspective, because a lot of times this is the season that stresses people out and creates some negative situations and feelings and depression and that sort of thing. So we look at it, and as we were talking about the 10 triggers, we actually kind of expanded it to emotional triggers in general. We said this just does not happen during the holidays, but year round. And then interactively, we were coming up with mitigation to the 10 emotional the 10 triggers. So during the week, I added this slide to define what are emotional triggers. They're external stimuli that causes intense emotional responses, often in relation to past experiences or unresolved issues. And some of us were talking about this last week. Charlie mentioned unresolved issues. They can be people, memories, places, things, smells, words, or colors. They can spark intense emotional reactions. And they can cause a variety of reactions, including anxiety, sadness, depression, anger, fear, shame, panic, crying, acting out, becoming defensive. And it gets exasperated around holiday times because there are a lot of different emotional things going on and family issues. But the stress of trying to close out the end of the year at work, feeling perhaps like you're being compared with other families or on social media if you're not perfect, and then things like family events and parties and gifts and budget and everything, it just all seems to snowball, which is sort of the opposite of what we actually say that holidays are supposed to be for joy and happiness and getting together. So there's another thing called situational triggers, and these are specific situations or environments that can cause a strong emotional response. For example, holidays is what we've been focusing on. So they arise from memories, experiences, or events, and they evoke strong emotional responses. Okay, we talked about last week, due to the pressures and obligations of the holiday season, it's normal for us and those we love to feel stressed or overwhelmed. They extend beyond social festivities. Isolation and grief can also be a part of it, and so on and so forth. We covered this last week, so I'm not going to go over word for word. And then we started talking interactively about 10 triggers, 10 common ways that holiday season and other times of the year can feel triggering. So we talked about the trigger, and then we brainstorm ourselves what would be the prevention and self-care. So just real quickly, talked about the trigger of guilt. Because of the pressures, I feel guilty, I'm not measuring up. And then we all said, do not compare yourself to anyone or anything else. Don't compare yourself to family or other people, or thinking that people are perfect, like social media falsely promotes. And people really elevate themselves on social media that they're perfect and happy, but that's not true. But other people take that in as a comparison, right? And that sort of thing. And we talked about if you give to others, it takes the focus off of yourself. So then obligations, there's so many obligations and tight schedules and everything can be overwhelming. So we talked about start planning ahead, get your calendar out now, schedule, and also schedule some things that you're going to do in the first quarter. So you're not just focusing on the end of the year, right? And then how to say no. You can say no. There's The Power of a Positive No is a book that was recommended, but saying no up front to things that you know are going to stress you out, so you don't have to feel guilty about not living up to other people's expectations, managing those expectations, being very proactive. Loneliness is a trigger around holiday season. So especially people who feel isolated, and oftentimes veterans feel isolated, people without family, people living in shelters or on the streets, that sort of thing. Hospitals, nursing homes, treatment facilities, all of this can exacerbate loneliness and isolation. So the prevention is that, ultimately it is a choice to be lonely, but we may have to help people with their cognitive processing of that. Because when the weight is on you, you might not really understand how to unravel that. If you actually, again, do for others without an expectation of return, just give for the sake of giving. And someone mentioned do for others what you would actually want others to do for you. Also, seek out people that need to hear from someone, like your friends or family. And Ron said to start making some phone calls now, so that when it gets closer to the end of the year, you've already have connections with people, and you can call each other, volunteering, and that sort of thing. talked about nostalgia can really impact people. These are memories and pictures and things like that could be difficult. It reminds us of a time when our perspective is things were easier or simpler, and they necessarily were not, but maybe they were. Also, it can be a painful reminder of what we did not get to experience, if we have any regrets and so forth, which is especially true for those who grew up in dysfunctional or chaotic households. And I say, show me someone that says they didn't have a chaotic or dysfunctional household, and I'll tell you someone that's not living in reality, because they all are at some point. And the self-care is to be prepared for triggering memories. So by learning about what they are, having awareness, focusing on your gratitude today, a daily gratitude exercise is excellent, keeps those memories in check. But if you have a future vision, a renewed future vision and goals and aspirations, go ahead and do it now. Don't wait till January to update your vision statement. It can focus you on the future and not on the past, because we don't want the past to define our present or our future. And when you talk about, we often go back to the past nostalgically and rewrite our own history or others. So you might want to get together with some friends or so forth when you talk about things, talk about the reality of it. And then that sort of thing. Knowing your purpose will help you move forward. So you want to renew your purpose, you want to renew a vision, and you should be doing that periodically anyway. And then the fifth one was a sense of time passing. Some people think, oh, I got through another year and didn't achieve my goals, or I didn't achieve, here we go again. And that can make people like a self-defeating attitude, can lessen confidence. People might have difficulty. They say, oh, I'm just getting older and I haven't achieved anything, that sort of thing. So again, the prevention self-care for that, this is the one we were on. We were talking about having a vision, having a purpose, an updated purpose, so on and so forth. So does anyone have any comments on this or anything to add to the sense of time passing? That's where we were.
Looks like Pete's got his hand up, and then Charlie.
Not so much time passing, but you mentioned the word dysfunctional family. Yes, even our family was dysfunctional. And if I think about the movie, It's a Wonderful Life, things were happening around, things weren't perfect, but they moved on as a family and they collectively were better. I think dysfunctional family can get a bad rap, and in some cases that's duly noted. But if you look at the good side of a dysfunctional family, there is cause for growth.
Charlie and then Vernon.
Okay, I want to remind us that one of the things we teach in Reboot is every person on this globe has a conscious mind, a creative conscious mind, and a subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is like the genie in the bottle. Your wish is my command. So if I claim, as an example, I'm a 5, the genie says, okay, I'll help you keep being at a 5 level. As opposed to claiming a 10, the genie says, okay, I'll help you keep feeling in a 10 spot. So the subconscious mind is really important. And I'll end with this. About 97% of every human on this globe thinks negatively to begin with. So what you claim, the subconscious mind says, I'll help you keep on that spot.
Vernon and then Maurice.
Yeah, I didn't know my wife was listening to my comment. So I got an email, and she says, it says my today's personal rating 1 through 10. You should have said, she said, is if there would be an 11, I would give it 11, because all the things are going on right now. It makes me feel much stronger and I don't feel beaten down. However, I'm going to give it a 10. So guess what, folks? My wife says I'm going to give a 10, and I'm giving it a 10.
Very good.
Outstanding, outstanding. I would just add that, sort of dovetailing on what Charlie said, we live off of our feelings. And that's kind of like one of the reasons why I shared that scale with everybody earlier, is that whether we believe it or not, we really are driven. Our day-to-day operations are driven by how we feel, which is impacted by either internal things of what's going on with us on the inside, or external things that are being driven by others, the world events, the whole nine yards, because we don't live on an island. And so we constantly have to wrestle with these thoughts and feelings all the time. And so that's why it's just so important to, as they say, check ourselves, because sometimes we can let our thoughts, like Charlie mentioned, it can run away with us. And, really get just lost in that. And next thing you know, you're thinking it and you're feeling it. And then the life feels like that's the way it is, where it doesn't have to be. And I love the fact of what Renata said. That's Vernon's wife. Renata basically said, hey, I'm going to say I'm a 10 or better, and I'm going to live that life. So I love it. And it looks like Rachel's got her hand up. Go ahead, Rachel.
So
And
just
then
real
Charlie.
quickly dovetailing on the emotions and feelings and things like that. And, my Rachelisms, if you dwell on it, you're going to dwell in it.
Very good.
Charlie?
I'd like to remind us that there's a book called As a Man Thinketh, So Is He. And many books have been written about how we think. But listen to the title, As a Man Thinketh, as a person thinketh, so is he.
That's a good point, Charlie. And as if people take the time to sit and reflect, and the who am I. So in Reboot, we do that with a core value exercise. You start with your core values, who am I, and then we delve into what are we passionate about, what pulls on our heartstrings, what do we get excited about. We get a purpose. What's our larger purpose in life, our skills, our personality? As you really think about that, who you are and how you can use that to interact in the world, you start really gaining a certain level of control over your future, where I'll call it influence, not control. You can influence by knowing who you are and plugging yourself into the situations where you can be successful. Someone has a hand up.
Yeah, that's me. I forgot to give a recognition and a kudo to Yogi. Congratulations, Yogi, on your retirement. You are now part of the officially a part of the veterans community. Hey, I'd love to sit down with you and find out how you're feeling on that. And Rich, back to the topic of triggers. We live with triggers all the time. I mean, it's happening always around you. When you get up in the morning, hey, something's gonna get you, whether it's the house, whether it's traveling, whether it's the news or whatever. So we constantly have to manage these things, and so we got to have a plan, and we have to have a plan on how we're going to deal with these things as well. Do we let every single thing that happens trigger us and then take us off our game, or do we get back on track and stay focused like a laser on what we want to do? And so again, it's a choice, and that's one of the things that I wanted to just share. Back over to you, Rich.
So awareness and knowledge is the answer to so many of these things. And what came to my mind is you're saying, a lot of things trigger us, but we can be triggers also on other people. So we can expand our awareness to see where we might trigger others that we're in relationships with and so forth, and try to be mindful and come from a state where hopefully we're not triggering people for our own gain.
And the triggering part could be positive and negative also.
Yeah.
So it's not always about gloom and doom.
That's right. Yeah, you can have positive. I was thinking about this morning, but then I thought, I think just like 50 to 70,000 of our thoughts a day are negative. Unless we intervene on how we think about things, and a lot of that came from survival instinct, just to be risk averse. I think the triggers can be negative and positive, and if we don't pay attention, I think we can probably just dwell on the negative ones as well.
And just so everybody
Rich,
knows,
I'd like to
Charlie.
remind the group that triggers are through the five senses. there's a certain smell that will take me back to my grandfather who died in his cornfield.
Yeah.
And he used to rent space near oil refineries. So anytime I smell that oil, it takes me back where I found him.
And the same could be said with sounds. Every once in a while, I'll hear like an old Nat King Cole song.
Yeah.
Boy, that'll take me way back. I mean, it's almost like I'm living in that particular moment. Like, wow, I'm reliving all my childhood, whatever. It's like, oh, that's interesting. But again, these triggers could be positive and negative. Rich has a tendency, in many cases, he triggers me with positive things. I'll say one thing, and then Rich will come up with just a profound point. And that really, in me, generates more thoughts. And so, again, it's just really how we understand it, how we interpret it, and then how we manage it.
Yeah, that's good. When you're talking about Charlie triggers and smells and stuff, does anyone else have any triggers? There's a particular perfume that triggers me back to my 16-year-old girlfriend because it's the scent that was in the shampoo. There used to be this shampoo called G, Your Hair Smells Terrific. And there's this, anyone remember that? We're going back to the 70s. And every once in a while that smell comes along and I'm like, what is this? I'm going back to
we're
when
about to get into it now.
When I was 16. So anyone have any other triggers?
Now that you think about it, yeah. Go ahead,
This is the
Pete.
fun part.
Anything really can be a trigger. We determine or we discover our triggers as we go out through life, and it's up to us to manage the trigger.
Uh-huh.
True.
This is confession time. Who's got some triggers? Music, songs?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Rich, remember we started off with holidays. And
Yeah.
so the holidays, once you see some of the holiday ornaments going up and people starting to decorate and then the commercials coming, it automatically sets your mood. Oh, I'm into the holiday mode. And you start reflecting back. Yogi's got his hand up. Go ahead, Yogi.
So I'd like to add to what Pete was mentioning. So everything and anything can be a trigger, and that is true. However, you have to be able and willing to acknowledge and be conscious enough to what you're feeling and how you're feeling it, because otherwise you're just gonna overpass it, and you're just gonna react instead of actually letting it be a sensation. Talking about specific triggers, there's a Bath and Body Works, like a vanilla scent. It reminds me every single time of a specific person when I was in high school that they would always wear that scent. So now every time that it just comes across, I get an immediate flashback of that person. So it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Rich, this is a validation for reboot training because a lot of us don't see these things coming. We just react and respond to them as opposed to really understanding and analyzing like, oh, hey, that's what's supposed to happen. No big worries there. It's not gloom and doom. It's just the way things work. So this is a really good conversation. I love it. Let's keep it going.
Good. All right. So let's cover the last 5. Does someone have another comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention the military personnel, especially if they have seen combat. You can get those experiences, those pictures, and those thoughts out of your head. And anything could be a trigger for somebody who has seen combat.
Yeah. That's true. You can never, the brain does not remove memories and so forth unless it's like a miracle from God. But what you can do is you can pancake on top of it new memories and replacement memories and behaviors and things like that and pack it down. And that's how the brain works with that. So,
well, that's why we often say you have to learn how to manage your thoughts. Otherwise, your thoughts will manage you.
That's right. Absolutely. It's a battlefield is in the mind. So, let's go to social pressures. The last 5 triggers, and then how we can prevent them. So, similar to the obligations present during this time of year, social festivities can be overwhelming. Those who struggle with social gatherings, right? Because there's some personalities that have difficulty with them anyway, and those who don't. But the pressures to attend social events can be stressful for introverts and extroverts. So, what could we do for prevention or self-care to avoid social pressure problems. And I'm going to type as you guys talk.
Well, I'll just kick it off, Rich. I think the first one is self-awareness, making sure that you have a plan for, your purpose, where you're going, what you want to do, how you want to get there, and even how do you value yourself, how you want to be respected and then recognized by others. You lead with your self-image, you lead with your self-value, and if you're doing it the right way, others will see who you are and they'll treat you accordingly. Rachel, go ahead, and then Charlie.
So I'd say honor, like what you were saying, honor yourself and be, if it's a commitment only to yourself, it may not be outside with other people. It could be just with yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so you reminded me, I had to listen to the audio, and thank you, Maurice, a second, the backup copy worked. And so when I was listening last week and you mentioned that book about, the power of a positive no, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Of a positive no, right. So when you say no, I have to always remind myself, but that's saying yes to myself.
Yeah.
Right?
And
so, yeah.
Right. And in the power of positive no, you can say, like, you don't have to attend every event, right? So you can say, I'm sorry I can't attend your event, but why don't we meet for some coffee, at a different time, maybe one-on-one, that sort of thing. So you don't measure yourself by what you can attend, but maybe you can do a phone call or something like that. So the power of positive no is it's being direct early on with what you can't do, but you can say something that you can do, that actually works. Okay, so you don't have to attend every event. Let's move to feeling left out.
Charlie's got his hand up.
Oh, Charlie.
Okay, on external triggers beyond yourself, I would say consider the source. How important is it to you, for you, to take in this feedback? Consider the source.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Pete's got his hand up, and then I'll go after Pete.
I have one word that's been relevant from time to time in my life and situations with people and professionals. That word is agency. So I'm going to be very quick. Agency is the sense of control that you feel in your life, your capacity to influence your own thoughts and behavior, and have, here you go, and have faith in your ability to handle a wide range of tasks and situations. So I don't want agency not to be put in this discussion. I think it's powerful to know you have agency and how to exercise it. Thank you.
Well, and I just want to kind of add to that, which is as I showed you earlier with that chart, if you're in that optimal zone of really feeling good, then there are 3 indicators, that you really want to be consciously aware of that are driving you. Again, it's, that motivation and engagement, how are you doing with that? You're focusing on performance and readiness, and then purpose, identity, as well as career. And so all these things are building blocks that as long as we're there, it doesn't matter what life throws at you, because you can count on it. Life will throw a lot of things at you. But if you're already in that optimized zone, you'll take them in, but you won't react to them. And I think that's really where we want people to be, which is not reacting, but understanding that, how they say, excuse my expression, shit's going to happen. You cannot stop it. You can only deal with it. But you have to be fortified internally to do so. So I'm looking at everybody's scores. We're all like 8, 9s, and 10s. So we're on the high end scale.
Right.
That means that we all have the ability to manage life and life's triggers and issues. Yeah. Looks like David's got his hand up. Go ahead, David.
I just want to echo on what Peter said with respect to it. Agent within is thyself. I think back to the first day of my basic training here in San Diego. First thing they did was woke us up. Second thing they did was march us to chapel. Third thing they did was march us over, got a uniform, and from there we went to the swimming pool. And that was my number one, I don't want to say setback, but the springboard that set me forward in life. I'd never been in anything deeper than a steel bathtub. what the hell am I doing in the Navy? The instructor said, jump in that pool. And I went down on the bottom of the pool and sit there and said, oh Lord, this is it. I'm sorry, Mama, I had to come home this way, but that's the way it worked out. They fished me out of the pool. And from that day on, I've had to put myself in a positive framework for which I've manifested into today. So it's built within that agent. That's all I want to say.
Very good. All right. Great dialogue. The next trigger is feeling left out. So, especially when we're shown images of holiday gatherings and pictures on social media, movies constantly depicting all this perfect togetherness. And I think AI is going to make it even more difficult because now you can say a couple sentences and it'll make new movies about perfection and all that stuff. So those who are not fortunate enough to have people to spend holidays with or have a history of feeling left out for one reason or another, the holidays can compound these difficult feelings. So prevention and self-care for feeling left out, I think it's to why not sign up where you can be involved with volunteering. I've done some volunteering from time to time on Thanksgiving and Christmas, and that's always been the high point of the day. So I think one of the things from feeling left out is to make yourself get signed in. Other comments?
So Charlie, and then I'll go after Charlie.
Okay, I think this is a reminder. Take our eyes off ourselves, put it on someone else, bless someone else. And you know the laws of sowing and reaping. You don't expect it, but all of a sudden a serendipity comes into your life and you say, wow. But you have to give in order to receive.
Yeah. And you can also invite others to come with you. Say, hey, I'm going to go down and serve Thanksgiving dinner down at this place or, down at the Dream Center, and then invite some people to come with you. It can really be a new perspective that can change how you view life.
And I would add to that. This is straight out of Unit 5, which is understanding comfort zones. And so again, no person is an island. And so how do you get out of your comfort zone? Well, particularly, let's talk about military. Well, again, you may be in a new town, a new country, new culture, the whole 9 yards. The way you get out of that is by networking, just kind of getting out there. And it's so interesting. On Wednesday, I presented one of those executive transition assistant classes over at Subbase. And we had about 30 or 40 senior leaders, that are getting ready to get out within the next 6 or 7 months or so, some of them within like 80 days. And one of the subjects that I brought up in terms of how you do this, how you become successful is you got to get off the base, you got to get out the comfort zone, and you got to get out in town. And so I asked, has anyone gotten out there and started networking and moving around? And I just got a lot of deer in the headlight looks, which is, okay, sometimes we have to get out of our own way and expand our horizons. And so big time comfort zones, got to learn how to understand them and then get around them. Rich, back to you.
Very good. Okay, next trigger, sense of loss. So we've all had different levels of sense of loss and so forth as we go through life. It can be difficult to experience a holiday season without those who maybe have passed before us or they're not in our lives anymore for one reason or another. So whether you're dealing with a recent loss or struggle with residual grief from even years and decades before, all of this is valid. So I think prevention and self-care for me, again, it's having awareness that these feelings might come. Ron often mentions that the fourth quarter is his most emotionally challenging time and that sort of thing. I would say, we can try to do these things for ourselves if we know it's coming on, volunteer, be around other people. But if we know someone that deals with grief, either if it's recent or even historical, maybe we make a phone call and invite them to something or get them engaged with something. So what are your guys' thoughts of triggers of the sense of loss?
Okay, I'll start it off. Rich has a grandson, Christian, who is in the Air Force. He had an accident that paralyzed him from the shoulder or the chest area down. And I asked Christian, how do you do it psychologically to move on every day? And his answer was quite simple. I appreciate each day and I thank God for what I have.
That's powerful.
Mhm.
Okay, let's go on to financial stress. The pressures to buy gifts and the best foods and the best events for holiday gatherings can leave many feeling guilty, resentful of how much they had to spend. Interesting choice of words, had to spend. Those giving into this trap may put themselves in a position of being unable to afford bills or medical care even during holiday expenses. I remember there was a guy that used to go out on Black Friday and videotape people standing around the line of stores all around the line. He used to say, "Okay, here we are. Here are the zombies that are waiting in line to buy things they don't need with money they don't have for people that don't care." And I'll never forget that. So, what do you guys advice for financial stress? I say set a budget, you know, throughout the year and stick to that budget. And maybe be honest with people, you know, if you're going to do something differently or maybe make things. What are you guys' thoughts? Mitigating financial stress.
So I'll start. I have something called a gift box. And not only for Christmas time, but birthdays. And throughout the year, starting like in January, if there's ever like a really good sale, but people aren't thinking about the holidays usually, oh, that's behind me. But if you can find something on sale and particularly buy something off season, in the winter you buy lighter clothes, and and then when it becomes spring and summer, you buy a heavier item, because there's always great sales at like 80% off. But you just, buy them, set the budget, but buy and then put them away into a box. And then you just go shopping at the end of the year in your own box that you have gathered throughout the year. So, and coupons are a huge thing. And I tell people that all the time, save your coupon. CVS is I'm like a CVS queen. I'll go in there for one thing and they'll send me a coupon, 40% off, $4 off the next time. And so if you're okay with you go by there every day anyway, just, wait till your coupons come. So just start it all through the year is the bottom line. And the other thing is, if it's something you can give, like your time, instead of a financial gift, maybe you can help out, give your time to help instead.
And I think if you do it throughout the year, maybe you go with cash and no credit at all, even, if you're good with that.
Yep.
Other thoughts?
We got John and then Maurice.
I was listening to everybody talk about a sense of loss, and I apologize if I'm going back
no problem.
One topic, but it occurred to me that, yeah, at Christmas time or even at family gatherings around the year when a lot of people are together and having a good time, I think about family members that died way too young, or soldiers that gave their life for us that aren't with us any longer, that I knew personally. And obviously it's very hard not to feel a sense of loss. And I think the only way I've been able to get through it is by saying to myself, am I doing anything that they would approve of? I mean, is my behavior something that honors their legacy and their values? And fortunately, being lucky enough to work with veterans, most of the time now the answer is yes, and it helps me kind of cope with a sense of loss by basically honoring the values that they had, as opposed to regretting the fact that they're no longer with us. So,
yeah, good point.
Yogi's got his hand up, and then Maurice after Yogi.
Talking about this, it made me remember a specific quote from Cody Sanchez, which she says, "Money is a cruel mistress. That you don't pay attention to her, she'll leave you for somebody else." Um, and I love that quote because it puts things into perspective, right? And everything that is not tracked is just gone, right? So if you're not tracking your finances, if you're not tracking where the money's coming in and the money's going out, you're not being purposeful and you're not being in the moment with life, right?
Yeah.
And with that, maybe it's not too late. It is November, so maybe some people already feel the pressure and the tightness of it. It's okay for people not to get gifts.
Yeah.
It's absolutely okay. Not even your time. Your time is
Yeah.
sometimes the most valuable part that you have.
Yeah.
And just like you mentioned, sometimes people don't even appreciate what you're giving to them,
Yeah.
right? So sometimes silence and saying, "Hey, I love you,"
Yeah.
or not saying anything at all is
Yeah.
the best gift to make them realize who they are and what they stand in life.
Yeah, if you make something or just write a letter or a heartfelt card, those are, for people that have their values straight, those are more cherished than getting a material gift.
Rich, this takes me back to Unit 12 of the Reboot Workshop, which is It's My Choice.
Yeah.
And it deals with how do you approach things, your consciousness, what drives your decisions. And essentially in the workshop, we talk to people about, look, it's your choice, and move things from have to, change that conversation from, oh, I have to do this, I got to buy them a gift, and change it over to a want to. What do you want to do? How do you feel? And then, live your life in that perspective. So again, these are all those subconscious decisions that people struggle with all the time. And many folks don't necessarily go through any kind of training to really help them put it in perspective.
Yeah.
The one thing you should always put in perspective is how you feel above all, depending upon the circumstances. There are some circumstances where you may put yourself last. Now, again, the problem in the military, and I'm not saying it's a problem, but what we're taught in the military is everybody else comes before you. And so you're last. And again, this was one of the conversations I had on Wednesday with an 06, he's got like 80 something days left to go. And he was stressing out. And, his argument is, I spent all this time taking care of everybody else. I didn't take care of me. I said, well, it's your choice. You got to figure out how to start taking care of you. And you got to turn that switch on. And so being tough and self-sacrificing in part of the team, okay, that's good. That's what we asked for. But at some point, you matter, and you have to matter to yourself. Back over to you, Rich.
Very good. All right. So the last one that we're talking about, and of course, there's more than 10, but it's neglecting your health. So it's really normal to neglect your health kind of during the holidays. There's an increase in less than healthy foods. There's peer pressure combined with decreases in time to rest, not food and alcohol and everything and parties. Many people find that they also use food or substances to cope with the increased stress during the holiday season. So with that, I was thinking the other day, why not just start with some healthy attitudes and behaviors right now? Don't wait till January. And I'm not saying you can't indulge and eat more than normally, but let's also balance it off with eating better at the same time. Or let's just make a commitment. I'm going to start I'm going to go out and take a walk every day or every other day for 30 minutes. Like, I'll just start being healthy as I'm indulging, so that whenever it gets to the end of the year, you're going to have some momentum build up to where you can shift over more easily. What are your guys' thoughts?
You know what I say on that is splurge, don't binge. Okay, knock yourself out, enjoy it, because that's what holidays are meant to enjoy. Yeah. But people get stuck into binging, and several months, several weeks after the holidays, they're still in that sweet tooth mode, and like, oh, I just gained 50 pounds. What's going on there? Hey, Rachel, you're gonna get the last word, Rachel. And it looks like Pete's got his hand up also. So Rachel, Pete, and then John, and then we're gonna close it out.
Okay, just real quickly, I say it's called an eating plan or a healthy life plan, and it just doesn't kick in because you ate too much after the holidays or prepping yourself for the holidays. If you live it day in and day out, your discipline and your call to those type of things, it'll be a lot easier than you might imagine.
Amen.
So,
Pete, and then John.
On the eating, just check out Peter Atta. I brought him up earlier on different topics, but he's solid on it. The main thing I wanted to say is Terry Tatum. Terry Tatum, when was asked to write something about Onward Ops, and there was a couple, but only very little iterations, and that is she referred to me as a gift. And, it is my honor to serve our vets. Everybody on the call is a gift. And there's just something about military families in general that we must, keep forward in our mind and in our hearts.
Very
So
good.
John, and then we can close it out, Rich.
Okay.
I just had one comment and one truth that I'll share about neglecting your health. And that is that the only way that I get through the holidays is to exercise every day. And I try to exercise a little harder because it seems for some reason that as soon as Thanksgiving starts coming, this voice starts coming to my head going, well, John, pumpkin pie counts as a vegetable, So, considering the fact that I give into that thought from now until New Year's, I just try to survive by exercising.
Very
It's a good
good.
point, bro.
All right. So,
Rich, you want to close?
yeah,
you want to
we're-
close this out? This
we're
has been a great
closing up,
conversation about our feelings, and
and
so over to you,
yeah,
Rich.
I've gotten, a couple of real high level things I wrote down. Really treat yourself well and do it now. Increase your awareness of what's healthy, treat yourself well, and then reach out to others. Reach out to others and give to others. And if we can do that, and I like what Rachel said. She's talking about live a healthy lifestyle, and what Marie said, splurge, don't binge. So you can kick in, gear up your healthy lifestyle now and splurge a little bit at the same time so that the transition is easier. But I think it's reaching out to others, invite others, and get out there, do some volunteering, and I think that's going to bring back much more than you could ever imagine. So thank you guys. Have a blessed weekend, a blessed week, and come on back next week. See y'all
Thank
later.
you.
Here.
See everybody later. Have a great week.
John,
All right.
I agree with
Thanks,
you on
guys.
the
Have a
pumpkin.
good one. Yeah.